Horus was born from the union between Isis and Osiris. The god with the falcon's head was conceived and brought up by Isis with the sole objective of avenging Osiris. When Horus became adult, he attacked Set, who reacted by pulling out one of his eyes. At the end of a cruel battle, Horus was the winner. His eye was recuperated by the god Thoth, who purified it and replaced it in the socket. The Egyptian religion attributes a lot of magic power to Horus's eye, as for example that of protection from disease and of bringing man back to life. In the mummification rites, Horus's eye was placed above the incision where the embalmers had taken out the internal organs. The priests of Heliopolis believed that Horus, the god of the sky, could not be deemed first among the gods without Ra, god of the sun, and so they identified one with the other. They decided that the sun eye, right, belonged to Ra, and the moon eye, left, belonged to Horus.
Although Horus is destined to become a king, the court of Heliopolis doesn't trust him. He is a very, very young god. Only after lots of trials, Horus will reach what he deserves de jure, thanks to the magical arts of his mom, Isis, and the power of his father, Osiris. In fact, Osiris threatens the other gods with frightful disgraces in case they wouldn't allow his son Horus to become a king.
One monument linked to the cult of the sun has over the centuries become the symbol of ancient Egyptian civilization, the obelisk. Symbol of the god of the sun, Ra, at the time of Akhenaten's religious reform, it was believed to be a ray of sun that had been turned to stone.
The word obelisk comes from the Greek and is certainly not an Egyptian word, as it was called ben or teken in Egyptian and means small skewer. It is without a doubt the name given to this impressive monument by the Greeks and Romans, who satirically and humorously likened it to a small skewer on which the Egyptians roasted meat for their gods.
Amongst the few remains of ancient Heliopolis, there is also an obelisk erected by Senusret I, second pharaoh of the 12th dynasty. The monument was erected around 1940 BC. At just over 20 meters in height, it is not particularly imposing. However, it has one feature that makes it unique. It is the most ancient obelisk in the world. But how were the obelisks built? Many theories have been advanced on the techniques used. The discovery of the great unfinished obelisk in Aswan proved to be a great help. The block, measuring 42 meters by 4, would have been, if completed, the largest obelisk in the world. It was never completed due to fractures that occurred when it was removed from the rocks around it. In order to extract the block, the ancient Egyptians got rid of the outermost rocks by heating them up and then cooling them down with water. Once they reached the compact vein, they dug lateral trenches. The block was now ready to be removed. Lifting an obelisk was a very complex feat, especially as there was always the risk of it breaking in half. The first step was to place a granite pedestal on the ground. 2 banks were built next to it, which created a sort of funnel. The area between the banks was filled with sand. The obelisk was at this point brought to the bank and placed on the sand, which was then gradually removed. As the sand was taken away, the obelisk was lowered and left to rest on the pedestal. Once it was upright, the banks were removed. The work was over. The obelisk was now standing.
I'm especially pleased to be able to say these few words about Heliopolis and its symbols. while having the obelisk of the Garden of Boboli in Florence behind me. It wasn't found in Florence, of course, but in Rome. The obelisk was bought by a member of the Medici family and placed in the Medici's Roman villa, which now houses the French Academy. And there it stayed until the Medicis, on leaving Rome, brought this important monument with them and erected it in the gardens of Boboli. The date of this obelisk, the date of its construction, dates back to the reign of Ramses II, whose name and epithets are written at the top of the obelisk, where he is regularly called loved by the god Atum, lord of Heliopolis. So we can therefore have no doubts about its origin.
Eliopoli, quindi non ci sono dubbi sulla provenienza.